Good evening, everyone. It is your girl, Marcy Thomas, and I am happy to be back with you again for another episode of the BGC Book Club. So please come on in the room as we get ready to have a wonderful historical, you're going to learn something, you're going to be inspired, all that kind of stuff type of story with one of my favorite guests, because I was telling her that today is actually the fifth time, I'm doing 10, but it's the fifth time that she's actually been here. See, 10, I'm projecting. It's going to be 10 times over time. So I know you're looking in the background. So get ready, Vanessa. We're going to keep you busy. But yes, it's such a pleasure to have her here with us again, and a pleasure for you to be here. So if this is your first time here, I am coming to you from the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia, originally from Cleveland, Ohio, with a whole bunch of places in between. So if you don't mind shouting out just so we can know who all is in the room, please feel free to do so. So, of course, if you've tuned in tonight, you know we are talking to the Vanessa Miller, and we're going to be talking about her book, The Filling Station, which is just about 3 weeks old. So thank you. My soror is telling me I look so pretty. Thank you. I know I'm not wearing our color today, but thank you. And welcome, Tanya. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. But Vanessa Miller is a best-selling, award-winning author and playwright. Her writing has centered on redemption themes and books about strong Black women in pivotal moments of history. And tonight's book is no different, The Filling Station. Now, several of her novels have appeared on bestseller lists. The American Queen, her last novel, won the prestigious Christie Award and was the 2024 American Fiction Award winner for historical fiction. The American Queen was also the Woman Evolve Book Club pick for October 2024 and a North Carolina Reads pick for 2025. She lives in North Carolina with her husband and family. And this book that we're going to be talking about, The Filling Station, has already been named as USA Today's best-selling book list and received a starred review from the Library Journal. So that's a whole lot about Vanessa and about what the book is. So without any further delay, let's welcome Vanessa Miller back to the BGC Book Club, number 5.
Number 5.
Yes. I'm so excited to have you here. We have people in for the first time and all of that. So I'm sure they're coming because they want to see you and hear all about the filling station. So I remember the last time you were here, you were in the process of working on the book. Yeah. So how does it feel to have it out in the world? Your baby's about 3 weeks old now.
It feels amazing because I struggled with it. I think I struggled with all of my books at the beginning. The hardest part for me is writing that first draft. And then after the first draft, when I begin to tear everything up, then it, becomes like a real book to me. Hey, Angela. So it feels really, really good to have this book out.
Yes. And I told you before we came on, so I'm not just saying this for the people who are watching, but I love this book. This book is good for so many reasons. And if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, everybody, I really do encourage you to pick up The Filling Station and dive into it. So if you haven't already read it, just to know, we're not giving you any spoilers here. So we're not going to tell you so much that you don't want to read the book, because the whole point is to introduce you to the book. So for those who haven't had a chance to read it yet, Vanessa, what is The Filling Station about?
Well, The Filling Station is about the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, but it's not just about the massacre. It's about finding a safe haven, and it's also about resilience in how these people were able to rebuild and restore their homes and their businesses after this massacre occurred.
Yes. And, as I was saying to you, and I'm sure it's true for a lot of us, we know that the Tulsa Race Massacre occurred, but we don't necessarily know like any of the backstory or even what happened afterward. So I love the fact that in this book, even though you're talking about a point in history that's, it's traumatic, obviously.
Yes.
But you also tell the story in such a way that we can find some inspiration. And as you said, see the resilience of the people who were impacted by the story. So, of course, if you're writing inspirational books, I know why you would do that. That's your jam.
That's my jam. And that was personal for me to be able to do this, because to me, there were no easy answers.
Right.
I had to be able, I wanted to write it the way I truly believe the people lived it. You know, there was like a church just about on every corner in Greenwood. When I was doing the research, and I was seeing all these churches, and the people were faithful people going to church. So I knew that, you know, and I'm thinking of myself, I would have questions. How did this happen? You know, how could something like this happen? So I knew that that had to be an element of the book, that, you know, just like Job, you know, questioning God, and God coming, you know, basically like, oh, okay, I got some answers for you. She said, currently I'm listening to the audio book. Oh, you are getting a treat, because Ian is a wonderful narrator. So I'm glad you're getting to listen to it.
Yes.
And so now reading that, I forgot what I was saying, you know.
It's okay. That's okay. We'll probably circle back anyway.
Okay.
But yes, it's just like you were basically saying, being able to tell the story and making sure that you did talk about the part of people with faith, and they would wonder, how did this happen, and those sorts of things. So that's where you were.
Oh, yes. And I mean, it was just a story to me that needed to be told. I am so honored that I was able to tell this particular story. And I fully admit that the beginning of trying to tell this story was hard for me as a writer, to research all of this and to discover, you know, all the things that happened. But the blessed part about it for me was when I discovered that they were able to rebuild. And, you know, this is the place that is called Black Wall Street. Actually, Booker T. Washington was the one who dubbed them Negro Wall Street. Today we hear the term of Black Wall Street, but, you know, he dubbed them Negro Wall Street in the early 1900s. So when they began to rebuild, and as I'm researching, the research tells me they became even better, even more prosperous after the massacre than they were before. And so that was a story I did not know.
Right.
All we've heard about was the massacre. But what I wanted people to understand was the resilience of these people, and how they would not quit. They would not give up. And I believe it is a beautiful story. And of course, I had to bring the inspiration. In my books, I want to bring hope to people as they're reading it. And I wouldn't have been able to write this if there was no hope.
That's true.
And I'm telling you now, listeners, people who are out there watching, you're going to see the hope of Greenwood as you read The Filling Station. So if you haven't read it yet, go get this book.
Yes, I definitely say that you should. And we had another comment about the audio. Yes, the narrator was awesome. So just so you know, Vanessa, I agree, because I read probably 300 pages, and then I listened to the last few pages. So a lot of times I do
the last few.
Yes, I read most of it, and then, you know, sometimes time be timing.
Yeah, I would have just listened to all of it.
Yes, but you know, I definitely would go back and listen to it, because the narrator is really
so good.
Yeah,
she actually won the Audie Award for the American Queen. She's my narrator for the American Queen, and she's my narrator for The Filling Station. And I pray we get to use her again on another of my books, because I love listening to her. I'm actually listening to it now. I says I have about 6% left to go. And and you know, I wrote the story, and I'm loving it while I'm listening to it from her, because I just love listening to her bring a story forth, because she has a way of just dramatizing it to where it's almost as if I'm watching the movie.
Yes.
Instead of just listening to it. She just, I mean, go on. She just bad. She just bad.
Bad to the bone. So yeah, we love that. We love that. So what I also oh, yes. I'll share your Amazon link with a coworker. Hope and love is definitely a part of the story. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And if you guys can also review the book over on Amazon and Goodreads, that would be so very helpful. Reviews really do help because they let other people who might be interested know what we think of the book. So please, please.
Yes.
And thank you for sharing the link.
Always very, very important to do that. So, but what I like,
can I offer one more link though?
Sure.
Also, bookshop.org. If you are a reader who likes to support indie bookstores, if you go to bookshop.org, they allow you to purchase the book based on like an indie bookstore in your area, and then that bookstore gets a percentage of the purchase. So
well, since you're doing that, I gotta shout out right quick. You see Brown Girl Collective Bookstore?
Yes.
That's my independent bookstore. Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
And it is attached to Bookshop. So if you're going to go to Bookshop and you love the work that we do here,
attach it to Brown Girl Collective Bookstore.
Go there and it takes you directly to where we need to go. So all the selling is out of the way, for at least for right now. So,
yes, absolutely.
But I wanted to say that even at the start of the book, you start out by telling us what we need to do. I mean, sorry, not what we need to do, but how we even got to a point of even having a this area in Tulsa. So you tell us about the people who started the Greenwood District. So tell us a little bit about them, because they are actual real people that you cover in the book as well.
Real people. And you can Google them. O.W. Gurley. He buys 40 acres in Greenwood because this is land that had belonged to the Native Americans, but the state of Oklahoma decided that, they were going to sell off this land, no matter that it belonged to someone else. And parts of the land had oil. So they, of course, they wanted to sell that to themselves. But they felt like these acres were good for nothing. Mm-hmm. And so they sold it to this Black man, O.W. Gurley. And well, he built it up. And it became this prosperous area. And J.B. Stratford was like the money man in Greenwood. So he comes to Greenwood after O.W. Gurley purchases this land, and they begin building homes and businesses. Well, he begins loaning money to people that are in Greenwood who want to start a business. So these two, O.W. Gurley and J.B. Stratford, are responsible for the building of Greenwood, the building of Black Wall Street. Mm-hmm. And so those are the two. And I like to talk about Lola Williams as well, because she was this powerhouse woman who was, she was just doing the thing. And she owned a confectionery shop, but then she also built this Dreamland theater where they would show movies, they would have reviews there. It was a 750-seater theater. And people would come from all over to go to Dreamland, and she owned it. So yeah, there were some amazing people in Greenwood who were just business minded.
And I love that, because it's just the fact of showing that we as Black people, because mind you, this was the early 1900s, about 100 years ago, not too far out of, a period of enslavement, and Jim Crow was still going on, and all these different things were still happening, but they had all moved from other places, generally the South, and decided to go to Oklahoma as a land of opportunity, so to speak. and were able to, build all these businesses and have all these homes and be able to really support one another as a community. And, we have oftentimes heard that, I'm just calling a spade a spade. A lot of times we do better when we are self-contained and can do these things for ourselves. And they prove that.
Yeah, because they made Jim Crow work for them, right. Whereas they may have worked outside of the community, but because of Jim Crow, they couldn't spend their money outside of the community. So that people went out to work, and then they would come back to Greenwood and they would spend their money there because they had everything they needed. Grocery stores, they had doctor's offices, they had the hair salons.
Right.
I start the book off in chapter 1, introducing the reader to one of the hair salons that was in Greenwood, and she had received her certificate from Madam C.J. Walker. Yeah. And that is true. And the certificate was on the wall. And so I introduced the reader to this woman. And so they had everything they needed. Like I told you, movie theaters, they had hotels. J.B. Stratford's hotel was like the envy of Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. It was, as the research went, it was just like this fabulous place that people wanted to be in, and they came to visit Tulsa and to visit Greenwood, and they would go and stay at the Stratford. So yeah, it was just an amazing place. And so that was the thing I wanted to show first. I wanted people to see Greenwood in action before, the tragedy, and then see how they rebuild it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And all of this is good. And as Tanya Brown Rivers says, these are brilliant resources. They absolutely are. They absolutely are. So, of course, those are the real people and the real situations. We know that there, is a real situation that's going on. Mm-hmm. And before we get into the characters in this book, one of the things that I did not realize, but I learned in reading this book, that the massacre really was like a day and a half of things going on. Yeah. So much destruction took place in such a short amount of time. And I found that fascinating, but also not surprising, just based upon the times and what was going on.
Absolutely. They snuck in the middle of the night when people thought everything had kind of died down. Mm-hmm. And but actually they were out getting deputized by the sheriff, and they were going and getting planes to bomb their homes, and they, stockpiled their guns. Actually they broke into a white man's business and stole all of his firearms to go out and do this. He was the only one who was actually reimbursed by insurance.
Wow. Okay.
Whereas everyone else, the Black people of Greenwood, they told them they were involved in a riot, so they would not, cover the damages to their home. And I stipulate that was not a riot. That was a massacre.
It was.
They came into Greenwood and did this while they were, many of them were asleep. And they were woken up by, homes were on fire. People were going into homes and looting them. They were stealing their belongings. And then they were also killing people as they were running. It was a massacre. And how they were able to gather themselves back up and begin to rebuild was something that was so important to me that I knew that this had to be told. And the Threatt Filling Station, I thought was so important, which is the reason why the book is called The Filling Station rather than Greenwood, was because I had taken Lisa Wingate to breakfast when we were in San Antonio, Texas, I believe, to thank her for all the stuff she had done for the American Queen. Well, the day before, she had just watched a documentary on the Discovery Channel about the Threatt Filling Station. So we were talking about it, and then I started researching it. Yes, that's the picture of how the filling station looked, except for they also had globes on the top
Okay.
of the gas of the little stations there. And so they no longer have the globes, but they used to. And so so I started researching this because the Threatt Filling Station is a historic site now. And it's they used to have, it was he owned a farm, he owned the filling station, he owned a juke joint, he owned and he also started, he built a baseball field, and the Negro League would play over in his area. This was right off of Route 66. But in 1921, Route 66 was not, built yet. It doesn't get built until the beginning of 1926. But he's on the road of Route 66. And so this whole idea of a safe haven comes from the Threatt Filling Station, because they said many people who were escaping the Tulsa Race Massacre ran to this filling station because this was one of the only places Black people could stop on this route 66 for, to get gas, to refuel their cars, to get maybe sandwiches or snacks if they're on the road. And many of them would sleep in their car if they happen to stop there and it's getting late in the day, sleep there and then start back on their travels the next morning, because Route 66, although it opened up travel for many people, it was still unsafe at times for Black people. So Threatt Filling Station was a place where Black people could go and feel safe. And this is where I sent Margaret and Evelyn.
Yes.
And it's how they begin to rebuild and refuel their souls, so that they can go back to Greenwood and then rebuild their own legacy.
Yes. And I that is so important to the book. That's why I made sure I went and found the picture of the real place. So again, we're talking about something that's real. And it was Alan. Alan was the husband, and Alberta was his wife.
Yes.
They were the ones that actually owned this place. So
Alan and Alberta Threatt.
Yes, the Threatts. And all of their children. They had a lot of children.
Oh, they had a lot of children. Look, they had even more children after 1926, but the book ends 1926, so I couldn't tell all of their kids, but they kept having children.
They had a lot of babies.
They had a lot of kids.
Had a whole lot of kids. So your main characters in the book, they are fictionalized, and that is Margaret and Evelyn Justice.
Yes.
So they, were caught up in everything that was happening with the massacre, and they managed to escape. And as they're escaping, they land at the filling station. So that's where that ties in. You already kind of touched on that. But tell us a little bit about those two young ladies, because I thought, as individually and collectively, I thought they were pretty dynamic leading ladies. And I loved how you wove their story into, this real world situation.
Yes, I loved writing about Margaret and Evelyn. One thing I wanted to do with Margaret, I needed her to be my strong character. I needed her to be the one who was who showed this resilience and the fighter, the never give up type of person. Whereas Evelyn, I wanted to show what being involved in something like this could cause, the trauma it brings on. PTSD was not a term back in those days, but this is what I'm showing with Evelyn, and how it can cause you to go, in ways you never expected to go, and cause you to bring harm to yourself when you had everything in front of you, all the expectations that you were going to have this wonderful life. And then you start spiraling, and people keep saying, well, what's wrong with you? And it's because of the trauma that a person has gone through. And a lot of times we suffer silently.
Yes.
And people don't know that we have experienced trauma. They just see us acting out, and they, say, well, what's wrong with her? Why can't she get it together? Why can't he do the right thing? But they weren't there, during their trauma.
Right. Now, both of these young ladies, they grew up in Greenwood. Margaret has already kind of gone away to college and, had these great opportunities and, is back at home. And Evelyn's a little bit younger, so she's preparing to do what her older sister has already done, which is kind of go out, get an education, and decide, how she wants to live her life. So, and I'm not going to tell too much, but things with parents and all of that kind of stuff that they find themselves on their own. You have to read the book to find out all of the details. But, you're thinking these are two young women, 17, 18, and about 22, 23. So they're really young. So it's like, not only are you dealing with this tragedy, Black women were expected to be strong all the time. Absolutely. Absolutely. But, they're really young. They're at, really the cusp of really launching into their womanhood and their adulthood. And then, like, there is this major setback when everything that they've known has kind of been disrupted, and they see some things that are really horrific and find themselves, on the run, so to speak. And so just to even think about what that would be, I can't even imagine, being that young and kind of losing everything and then having to start over and figuring out what that is even going to look like. But they do end up at the filling station, which they were familiar with from, trips when they were younger. And so that was a blessing that in the story that the family decided, say, hey, you all stay here. We're going to look after you and things like that. So I really enjoyed being able to see the community, because we know it, we hear it, but we really get to see how, there's a thing of sometimes found family. Well, this is now my family because they're taking care of me.
Absolutely. That was exactly what the Threatts became to Margaret and Evelyn. They were the found family that they needed at that moment in time. And so I loved writing that, and I loved being able to bring them together and to, and to have Evelyn and Margaret recognize just how important the Threatts had become to them.
And they become very important, helping them in a multitude of ways. But at the same time, there is still this desire to, because they could have just said, forget Greenwood and I'm never going back. I don't want any parts of it, anything like that. I'm thinking like in our lifetime, Katrina, how there's some people after Katrina, they never went back to New Orleans.
My aunt was one of them. My family's from New Orleans.
Okay.
Yeah, my aunt, she moves to Baton Rouge, and she recently passed away a couple of years ago, but she never moved back to New Orleans. And that was a shocker to us because she had lived through so many hurricanes, and that one, it was she said, oh no, it was the worst. They had to actually rescue her off of the rooftop, and she was like, never again. So yeah, she but she was still close to New Orleans because she moved. She ended up buying her a house in Baton Rouge. And so, but yeah, and so Evelyn is that character where she's like, oh no, I'm not going back. I don't want any parts of it. But Margaret believes that their father's legacy is worth preserving, and she has to go back. There's no question for her that they will go back.
And that is just something, again, not even, that seems unimaginable, but then also important, because when you think about, like you said, her father's legacy, which is tied to her legacy, and everyone that would come behind her, and to not give up, not give in.
Yes, Absolutely. Not give up and not give in. That was Margaret. But although she's fictional, that was Greenwood. That was the people of Greenwood. That's how they were able to rebuild. I was so impressed with them. No insurance money. No, the insurance denies them. The mayor is trying to rezone them. He's trying to sell this land to some developers. They have setback after setback, bad conditions. They're living in tents, and yet they still rebuild. You know, I really consider us we soft.
We are.
I'm like, could we do that? But I believe we could do it if we had to. You know, because I just really truly believe that we are just resilient people. And this is what we know. We know how to make, you know, $1 out of 15 cents, basically. Right. And so, and we know how to, you know, pull things together when things just seem like they're going awry. That's what we do. And so I just believe we would. Yeah, she said, defeated the odds. Yes.
Absolutely. And just thinking about that, as you just said, you know, their homes were destroyed, their businesses were destroyed. You know, these companies, insurance companies that they have been paying money to for all these years, refusing to pay, you know, doing something kind of like what we would call redlining in more, you know, current terms, to make sure that they didn't get money when they did finally try to help them, putting stipulations. Because that was one thing that it was ticking me off. I'll be honest. Let me backtrack. The whole book was ticking me off.
Wait a minute.
Getting mad.
Tell you that Red Cross. I know what you're talking about. The Red Cross Relief Report.
Yes.
When I found that report, I was thinking, oh, great. I found some really good research. Let me sit here and read. I mean, it was a thick report. And I'm like, let me sit here and read through this. And as I was reading through it, I just found myself getting angry. And so then I said to myself, wait a minute, this report was written 100 years ago.
Right.
I can tell everybody what they said in this report, because after 100 years, there's no more copyright on it.
Right. That's
so
true.
I told my editor, I said, I'm going to add epigraphs to the beginning of each chapter. Yeah. And so some of the epigraphs we used, the survivors, we used some of their statements. We got approval to do that from Greenwood Cultural Center. And then some of them were from the newspaper, Tulsa Star, some of the things they were saying, or what the mayor was saying. And then most of them were from the Red Cross Relief Report, because it angered me that they admit in this report, they say, you know, with any other disaster such as this, we have always given money or loans to the survivors. I said, but this is the only time we did not do that.
Right.
And I truly believe the reason they did not do it is because, see, Greenwood had been a prosperous place for Black people. And I really believe, well, if we give them money, they'll get back on their feet. You know, they don't necessarily want us on our feet, but yet we rise anyway. And so that angered me. The fact that they said, you know, Black people are a servant class of people. So they will work for whatever relief they receive. And they did not allow these people a moment to grieve the loss that they had endured. They told them the minute here comes the Red Cross, and the mayor talking about, oh, they got to work for this relief. Where have you ever seen that happen? FEMA comes in, they give checks, and then they start helping the people because they're tax-paying people, and they start helping them to rebuild. They never tell you, oh, well, you got to dig your own ditches. You got to, they had to make their own clothes, their own pillows. They gave them needle and thread and the material. It was a shame. The students who needed books, they even made the kids work for their books. They found some type of employment that these babies could do in order to have books for school, because every Black person had to work for whatever relief they received. It is a shame, and it is something that should never happen again. And that is why I wrote in the book everything, not everything, but I wrote in the book the stuff that was ticking me off that the Red Cross was saying, because I wanted us to see it so that you know what these people are thinking of you. If you are going in for any type of help with something and you feel like you're being treated differently than other people, you may be feeling the right thing, because I never expected to see all of that information in that Red Cross relief report, but that's what they think of Black people. And they wrote it down, and I'm like, and I'm just the one to go ahead and let people know what you said. You got the right one now.
I love it. I love it.
I'm about to expose everything you said.
I love that. And you might not have seen these comments, but yeah, Tommy saying, I love how you weave that in so creatively. Yes, that was good.
Thank you.
And Lady Leo 3, yes, I was getting so mad. Yeah, I was mad. I was mad. I mean, of course, what happened is like I was sad, then I was mad.
Yep.
You know, I'm like, what in the world is going on? It's like the situation.
But it should make us mad.
Yes.
Because it's injustice. And that's why I named them the Justice Sisters.
Yes, the two girls.
Because where is the justice that we should receive in America? You know, where is that? This is a country that has never been fair to Black people. And yet we rise anyway. And that's why I really do believe The Filling Station is that book for such a time as this.
It really is.
No, they think they want to take us back. But I did a post and I said, you know, segregation is really not the flex they think it is, because Black people prospered during those times. Yes. Anyway, you know, you throw us some lemons, we gonna make some lemonade. It's just what we do. And so that's why you see people, they out here dancing, and where them fans at? Because they, you know, Black people are like,
wait a minute, I got one around here somewhere. Oh, here it is.
Like, I said, I'm going to buy me one, and I'm going to learn that dance, because I'm like, you know,
yes.
Because my whole thing is y'all cannot break us. And I'm so glad I did that research for The Filling Station, because it is what has fueled me for these last few months, because I recognize, they cannot break us. Because we just keep getting back up. They want to break us, but we are not those people. We are people who are resilient, who get things done, who say, oh, you know what? This is how we've always had to live. You know, y'all crying about it, but we've been used to this.
Right. And it's so true that it is timely. And to think that, I mean, there were some things that were starting to change in terms of people want to not tell the truth about history and all that type of stuff. That was already happening even before, you know, you started writing this book, you know, the banning of books, you know, changing history.
They don't want people to know the truth.
They don't want people to know the truth. And now, you know, now they're trying to change the Smithsonian to take certain things out of it so that they are telling the truth.
But that's what happened. We cannot help that that's what you did, or that's what your ancestors did. We cannot help that. That is what happened. These things happened to our ancestors, and you don't want us to remember that these things happened. Well, I'm sorry, you're too late, because the cat is out the bag. We know these things happen. And my prayer is that even more writers begin to write about our history and how our people have been resilient through any trying times that we have had, because we have had trying times in these here United States of America. And it is time for the world to stop, playing in our face and pretending as if, we've had it so good. We have not, but we have survived.
Mm-hmm.
And we have not only survived, we've thrived despite the people who hate us. That's and right. Hate us without a cause.
No reason. No reason. No reason. Lady Leo says, and this thought crossed my mind too, since your book is so full of facts, then people are going to put it on the banned book list. That's why we got to buy them up and tell people and keep telling people and keep telling people
absolutely
about it. That's absolutely why.
That's why, yes, we have to spread the word early and often and keep letting people know that this book is out there, before they get wind of everything I told on them.
Yeah.
And have this book in our homes, because this book sheds light on so much that, has happened in this country, and people need to understand it, not only from, what they did, but you need to understand what our ancestors did. Right. Our people are, I keep saying resilient, because that is the thing that kept me going. It was because at first when I was reading it and I was researching, I was really, I would sit in my office and I would just be so almost to the point of depressed. But then I found the research that showed me 1925, a parade comes down Greenwood. They have this convention. It's the convention that Booker T. Washington used to be over. Well, the women in Greenwood convinces them to have their convention in Greenwood this particular year, because they were all rebuilt, but they were having trouble getting people to come back into the city, because of course there was a whole massacre there. People
were afraid.
And so they decide to have the convention there. And so the same white officials that tried to stop them from rebuilding, they come to this convention, because see, Tulsa is now the stench of America as well. Right. And so, and there are reasons, and I show you in the book, I talk about the fact in the book, there's some things about J.B. Stratford and also A.J. Smitherman that show you America was not fooling with Tulsa, because they tried to arrest them and accuse them of causing this riot. And so J.B. Stratford and A.J. Smitherman, they bond out and they leave Tulsa never to return. But they go to several different cities, and each place they go, Tulsa tries to get them extradited back. And no city would extradite those men back to Tulsa. And so that shows you that America was not fooling with Tulsa. So they understood this. And so Tulsa wanted to be this like city that sat on a hill. They wanted to be America's darling, because Tulsa was this old, rich city, and Oklahoma, and so they knew they had burnt some bridges and they needed to fix it. So that's why they come to this convention, and they stand up and they're like, oh, there will be no more violence in Tulsa. We love everybody. The races get along beautifully. But what I see when I read that was that this whole sea of Black people at this convention that are in the audience, and these white officials, they get up, and I see them looking out at all of these people who they tried to destroy, and yet they stand. And I see them, I imagine them saying to themselves, wow, y'all are something else. Nothing can destroy y'all. And so that to me was the beauty of this book. And that propelled me forward as I wrote this story, because I wanted the reader to get to that, to see that they were not destroyed.
Right.
They stood tall even in the face of racism. And so we will stand tall.
We will.
In these days, in the face
Absolutely.
of racism.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All this stuff was so good. And I did not tell you this part. I told you that, I listened to like the last few chapters and I read most of it, but I did it in a day, just so you know, because I just
wow.
Yes, I'm like, wow. This just was so good. And even the parts was making me mad. I'm like, okay, I got to get to something else because it's making me mad right now. And I want to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just shows us so much about the history, about the resilience of the people, the real people, as well as, the fictionalized account of Margaret and Evelyn, and just the things that they were going through, doing like the real people would have done, and rebuilding and coming together and working together and supporting one another, finding love. And there's some of that in there, how you navigate love and relationships when you're
finding scallywags,
right? Finding scallywags and good men too.
Yes.
But in the midst of everything else that's going on, because one particular character, Tommy, the baseball player, I thought about him because y'all got to read the book to figure out all of his story. But part of his story is that he saw his father go through some things that really traumatized him, so to speak. And it changed the way that he even thought about approaching relationship going forward. And it's just something to think about in our own lives. How many times is it something that somebody else went through, or even that we went through, that we carry that stuff with us, and it impacts how we navigate life and love and relationships, even in, as we move forward.
Yeah, I believe that's true, though. I believe the trauma that we experience, even as young children, manifests itself as we're older, and sometimes it becomes something that they just can't get through. It says, I read the book and I already miss. Oh, you miss Evie and Margaret. Oh, just read it again.
Yes. But yes, it is hard. And sometimes people just can't navigate their way through those things that they've been through, and impacts them in ways that can be quite negative. But on the other side, we have Elijah, who's also been through some things. And the filling station means two different things. It means two different things. There's the actual filling station, and then there's another type of filling station that we get to experience through Elijah, who also has had some hard times, but he just chooses to deal with them differently.
He does. And so we don't want to give it away to the people, but he deals with it differently. And he is my person that I needed for the book to kind of center it, and bring in my inspiration, because I didn't want to give easy answers for Margaret and Evie, who had been through this massacre. And so I needed them to be able to go through what they go through. But Elijah, he was like my knight in shining armor. And I'm seeing a lot of women talk about Elijah and that they loved Elijah. And I'm so thankful, because their story to me was just so beautiful. But yeah, they had to go through a lot to get to the beautiful parts. And can I say one thing? I'm seeing a lot of people saying that they've already read it or they're listening to it. And I just want to thank the readers for going out and grabbing this book and doing it quickly, because people don't realize how much that actually matters. You can have a great book, but if people aren't going to pick it up, then publishers begin to say, oh, okay, well, we tried. And bookstores no longer will stock it because people aren't buying it. But you guys are going out there. I mean, y'all put me on USA Today bestseller list the first week. And so I am overwhelmed, and I'm very, very thankful. And I really appreciate this. You don't know how much. And I just really appreciate if you guys will keep spreading the word. If you love the book, you got to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend.
Absolutely.
That they need to grab this book, and they need to grab it quickly.
Yes. Yes. And I don't know if you remember because you got a lot going on. I knew this book was coming out and you weren't on my calendar yet. And I was like, yo, come get on my calendar. Hurry up. Because I didn't want it to get too far out.
I know. And I appreciate
it as early as possible.
Thank you, Tanya. I really appreciate you for getting the book early. I really do.
Yes, because that's just so important. And
it really is.
It always has been, but especially now, because just like other things, people are trying to not do other things or take away from. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that when books are coming out by authors that we want to read, especially like really important stories like this, that we're jumping on it, because we don't want it to be, like you said, Vanessa, that people are like, oh, nobody's interested in that, because if people aren't interested, that means you're not able to continue to put these books out there. I mean, I know there are other ways, independent and things like that you can do, but it's just something about being able to have kind of like an engine behind you to help.
And that engine really does work. It really does. It really is helpful to authors to be able to be published by traditional publishers. And that only happens if we continue to sell our books. So I'm very thankful that people listened and they went and they got the book. And, and the booksellers also, the indie booksellers, they really went out and brought the filling station into their stores. And I'm so thankful for that. Because, it all depends on, there's a whole lot of dominoes that have to fall in just the right way when you're trying to release a book. And I'm just very, 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 very thankful that those dominoes started falling, because I was clueless. I didn't know if everything was going to work out. I just knew I loved this book, and I just knew that I thought it was the most important book I've ever written. So I said, I'm going out on tour and I'm just going to do what I can do. And, and I was like, God will just take care of all the rest, because I can only do the part that Vanessa can do. And y'all took care of the rest. So y'all, thank y'all. And let's keep on getting this book sold and getting this book. Contact your local libraries.
Yes, libraries.
If they don't have the book, tell them, you want them to order this book. And so, contact your local bookstores, find out if they're carrying it. And if they're not, ask them why not. This is a good book. You need this book. So we have to have advocates, and so out there. And so I pray that people begin to just telling everybody about it.
Yes, and the libraries are always been important, even more so now, because again, there are things that people are trying to take away from us, and and everybody can't purchase a book or have Audible or Spotify or whatever where they can listen to it and purchase it, and so it's important to have those
other get it from the library,
to be able to get them from the library as well. So yes, this is so good. And everybody, as y'all know, we don't give you everything, but hopefully it's enough for those who haven't read it yet, it's enough to whet your appetite to want to go ahead and be able to do that. Okay, I'm seeing excellent, but proud of the Doc Bookshop and Doc Community and Trayvon Hitman Library. Okay, so those.
Yes, absolutely. That was my first event.
Oh, okay.
An event on March 10th before the book released, because it wasn't released until the next day. Lisa Wingate came out and did the event with me. Thank you so much, Jackie, for coming to that event. And yes, and thank you, Doc Bookshop. They were amazing and wonderful to work with this book. People have just been so amazing the whole tour. So I am going to be at page 158 on Sunday. So
Where's that located?
April the 6th in Wake Forest, North
Okay.
Carolina at 2 p.m. And so please, if you live out there, come on out. I'm going to be in Charlotte at the Ideas Festival at UNC. I think that's something you have to RSVP for, though. I'll be there on Saturday. And then my schedule is on my website as well. A lot of stuff it kept changing. It just kept switching up. And then I just got a call from Barnes & Noble today. So I was supposed to be at Barnes & Noble on the 6th, right after page 158. But now we've changed that to April 19th. So I'll update the schedule.
Okay, you got a request.
Oh, I'd love to come to Chicago. We'll see how we can make that work. We'll see how we have a bookstore right in Chicago that worked with me on the pre-order campaign, and so we'll see.
Yes, that's wonderful. I love that. I love that you're getting out there. I love that people are, picking up on this book, specifically, but a lot of times what happens if they find out about this, then they want to go read other things that you got.
I hope so. They can go read The American Queen if they haven't read it, read The Filling Station, and then I have other women's fiction titles too that are out there. Go check out my whole catalog.
Yes. And I will, when I get a chance, I will go back and link the ones that she has been here. Vanessa has been here for What We Found in Hallelujah, Something Good,
and The Light
on Halsey Street, The American Queen, and now The Filling Station. So this is number 5. Earlier when I introduced you, I had 2 hands up, but so yeah. we got 5 more. I know you got 5 more in you somewhere.
Oh, yes, I do. I hope I have many more than that.
Right. Well, let me ask you a question since you said that. What title is this? What number is this for you, The Filling Station?
I think it's number 55.
Okay.
55.
Okay. So see, yep. There's a lot. Oh, and Tanya's saying, yes, read American Queen 3 weeks ago. So see.
Thank you.
Yes. So that's just fabulous. But before we go, because believe it or not, we are at time. But before we go, there is something that we wanted to share with you before we go. So I'm going to take that down and put our picture back up right quick. Because the Threatt Filling Station is a historical landmark, but I want you to talk some about that. What's going on with that?
Well, I have the information in the back of the book where if anyone wanted to donate to the Threatt Filling Station, they have their information. They are, trying to restore everything in this area. And so it is, to me, Alan and Alberta Threatt were the ones who owned this place originally. And they have their great grandchildren now are the ones who are trying to restore it to its, I guess, I don't think they're trying to, use the gas pumps anymore, but they're, they just want people to be able to come out and walk the grounds. And he owned a lot of land out there. And so if you see the information in the back of the book, hopefully you will go and check them out. I have a link in the back of the book for the Threatt Filling Station.
Yes, and that's just so important because just like we want to keep these stories going, we want to keep our spaces open, or at least, where they don't tear them down, where you can go and see them and all those sorts of things. So it's important, if you can, to support that as well.
I also have a link in the back of the book to Greenwood Cultural Center. They're the place that I went and found all this information out about the survivors. And there's a link where you can go and look at information on there, or you can even go to the Greenwood Cultural Center and you can also donate to them as well if anyone wants to do that.
Yeah, so that's important all the way around, the books, the literature, the stories, the movie when it gets made.
Movie, speak it.
The movie when it gets made.
And if anybody knows movie producers, you can go ahead and just have them contact me for the Filling Station. I'm available.
I'm just saying, because this book is really, really good. And I have read, I talked about the other 4 that we've done here, but this one is just extra, extra special just because I see you put your heart into it, and, the story, the way that it's crafted, the real people, the fictional characters, how everything ties together. It's just excellent, excellent, excellent. 5 stars. 10s all across the board.
Thank you.
And somebody's like, just saying. yeah, movie. Oh, the question was, were you able to interview the 100-year-old survivor?
No, because she's actually 110 years old. There's 2 of them, and because they're 110 years old, I did not want to kind of burden them with trying to interview them, because you also have to think about the fact that this thing happened 103 years ago. So they would have only been about 7 years old when it happened. And so I did not want to, bother them at this time when they weren't, there are no adults left that I could have interviewed. And so I had to take people who were adults at that time. And so I just took the account from all of the research that I was doing. Yes, 110 years old. Yes.
That's a blessing.
I believe they're still waiting on justice for Greenwood.
They are. They are.
They've actually sued the state, and that case was denied. And so the DOJ then did their findings, and and so hopefully they'll be able to try to sue them again with the DOJ findings. Who knows?
Who knows?
This country owes them something.
Yes, absolutely. But I loved, and everybody here that's already read loves The Filling Station. And again, I'll just share, because we talked about places you can get it. I got to throw, the Brown Girl Collective bookstore up there again.
Thank you so much.
Because yes, this is a labor of love, but like I say, if you like it here, you want to see more of these types of conversations, your support is always welcome, because it helps Vanessa and it helps Marcy.
That's right.
So just
Brown Girl Collective Bookstore. .com. So go and grab it.
Yes. Please do keep that in mind as well. So that is all I have for tonight. Vanessa, I'm going to let you grab some water, whatever. I'm just going to tell them, because this week is a little bit different with the BGC Book Club, and I'm going to let them know, and I will see you in just a second.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. As always, I enjoy talking to Vanessa, of course, because I've had her here 5 times and counting. But I just wanted to let you all know that this week we actually get a double dose of the BGC Book Club. On Wednesday, I will be back, and that's April 2nd. I will be back with Casualties of Truth by Lauren Francis Sharma. So that's happening on Wednesday. So you get 2 books this week. And actually, I'm going to look at my phone right quick. I'll tell you who's going to be here next week as well. Give me just a second, because, I didn't get a chance to write it down. But next week on the 7th, I will have Yasmin Ango will be here with Not What She Seems. And then on give me a second, y'all. Yeah, that's it for right now. There's some other things coming, but those are just the ones I'm going to share for right now, because next Wednesdays will be pre-recorded. So yes, look for this on Wednesday, Casualties of Truth, and then look for Yasmin next week. So thank you everyone for being here. It's been such a pleasure having this conversation with you. Thank you all for being engaged. Thank you for sharing it out. Thank you for buying the book, all of those wonderful things. And I look forward to seeing you again real soon for the next episode of the BGC Book Club. So everybody take really good care of yourselves, and we'll see you again soon. All right. Bye-bye.